Okay, so today we're going to be drawing the connector. So just remove that little chunk of hidden line here. So just to kind of run through it real quick, just the basic shape. Essentially what we have here is an L shape. And what I like to do, just to mentally break this up, and again, this is not part of the drawing, it just sort of helps me visualize things, is kind of put this line temporarily here. Again, we have this L shape, and that's an inch wide by a 1/4 inch thick. And then it is an 1 3/4 long by 1.5 inches tall. So we're going to start with kind of this side profile. And then coming out from there, and again, I'm going to remove that line because that's not actually part of the drawing. Coming out from there, we have this sort of like a letter D shape, almost, sort of upside down, or half a circle with a rectangle on top. Again, however you want to describe that geometry, and that comes out from here. Okay, and the big mistake a lot of people make is they see this 1 inch measurement. They say, okay, this comes out 1 inch, but in fact, we need to subtract 1/4 inch from that because the 1 inch is showing you the total finished kind of width here, whereas the our letter D shape here is only 3/4 of that. So we have to subtract our 1/4 inch here. So that comes out 3/4 inch. And then the last thing we have is this thing called a boss, which is essentially the opposite of a hole. It's a cylinder that protrudes up, and it has a fillet that goes all the way around. So let's get to drawing that. So like I said, our front view is essentially going to be this view along this plane right here. So let's start with that. So we said, switch over to object. We said we have kind of an L shape. That is 1 3/4 inch long by 1.5 tall. Now some of this line is going to have to go away eventually, but for now, let's just get that L shape going. We said it was 1/4 inch thick. And we'll just connect up these lines here. And then what you could do to actually sort of help yourself out here is draw this line 1 inch long. That's going to be the top. And then we'll come in and trim away these pieces. So here's our L. And again, we're not going to extend to the right past the end of this line because this completed is 1 inch. And some of this line right here is going to go away eventually, but we don't know what yet. So next thing we need to lay out is kind of our side profile of this letter D. This gets a little tricky because from the side, again, if we remember, the side view of a cylinder is actually a rectangle. So there's no curvature in the view that we're going to look at here. So what we need to do is figure out the total height, and then figure out, where things come into play. So here we've got a 1/2 inch radius that shares the same center point as this hole. So that means to get to the center of this is 1/2 inch from the bottom. And then if we go over here, we see a vertical measurement that's also 1/2 inch for the rectangular section. So from this edge to the bottom of our curve here is 1 inch. So what we can do to make this happen is we're going to come down here 1 inch, and then come in and bring that into touch. Now, again, one thing we need to look at is go back and look at some of our original geometry. I can move my cursor along this flat face here and move it out onto our protrusion on the right without crossing a sharp edge. However, in our drawing currently, we do have that sharp edge. So we need to figure out where does this merge happen, and then where does it separate? Because it actually separates when the front face starts to kind of curve away. So we need to find out where exactly is this point. That's exactly where our curve stops. Okay. So again, we have a rectangular section up here. So that's what's going to be coplanar with the side of this right here. And then the part that starts to sort of peel off is where the curve starts. So that's 1/2 inch down from the top. So if I offset down from the top 1/2 inch, okay. Now I can either trim that or I could just shorten this line, doesn't really matter. And we'll delete that. And now the basic structure of this is essentially done. Now we've got to add our boss, so we can offset that. Our boss fillet, our boss is 1/8 of an inch tall and 3/4 of an inch wide. So offset 1/8 of an inch. Now there's two ways we can do this side profile of the boss. One is we could shrink this line down that's currently 1 inch long and turn it into a 3/4 inch line, and then add the fillet after the fact, because again it has a fillet of 1/8 of an inch as well. Or if we realize, okay, we have 1 inch total in width here, and then we have a 3/4 inch flat surface, and then we're adding an 1/8 of an inch fillet to each side, which means we're going to have kind of this rounded curve. It's going to come right to the edge. So a neat little trick is to just draw a circle here rather than use the fillet tool, like so, and then trim this up. Watch this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there we have 3/4 of an inch, our boss, plus our fillet, all set there. So now, essentially, all of our visible lines are done in this view. Now we can start adding in our holes. So on the back side, we have a hole that comes 1/2 inch from the left edge of our drawing. And it is 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and that 1/2 inch goes right to the center of the hole. So if we offset here 1/2 inch, okay. A few things we could do to lay this out. Number one, we could offset this 3/16 in either direction, or some people might appreciate this. Draw a circle right there. Hit D for diameter and type in 3/8. Then we can just use that as a temporary marker to bring in our hidden lines here. Get rid of that circle. This is going to become a center line. And we need to stretch it out, obviously. So let's go 0.1. And then down 0.1 as well. And we got to adjust the line type scale on these. So let's bring that up. Let's go 0.5. See where that leaves us. It looks like we don't have a line or a dash with our center line yet. So we're going to go 0.3. Okay, let's try 0.2. There we go. I like that. That looks good. Alright, and then we have two more holes. We have a vertical hole. So if we look at the call out on that, it says it's a 1/4 inch diameter by 5/8 of an inch deep. But let's draw the horizontal hole first. Our 3/8 through hole that's centered up on the circle. So that's going to be centered up right through the middle of this anyway. So let's take and draw a center line right through the middle. Just find our midpoint here and draw that across. And we said it's 3/8, so we can offset 3/16 this time. Or you could do the same thing we did last time, where we draw a circle on the end and then use that to guide our geometry. It's up to you. Switch those over to hidden, and then of course we're going to stretch out our center line. Let's go 0.1. And 0.1 as well. And then let's decrease our line type scale for these as well. Let's try 0.5. That gets us exactly what we need there. It's looking good. Now, our hole that's going to go here is right in the middle, so we can at least temporarily draw a center line. We said it's 5/8 of an inch deep from the top surface, so if we offset that down 5/8, you'll see it lines up right with our center line here. So we can just delete that. Actually, let's hit Control C and bring that back. So this is the termination point of our hole. So technically, we could offset 1/8 of an inch, one left, one right, And then we'll come in with our trim tool and just remove that and that. And then we'll turn these two into hidden lines. In fact, we could just use match properties. Use this as our source, and then use it to draw these two into hidden lines. Now, temporarily, this is good enough, other than adjusting the line type scale there. However, we can better define that vertical hole there by adjusting the termination point of it, where it's actually going to have a bit of a curve to it. But we can't do that until our until our right side view is done. So let's start drawing this view. We'll always start by just using our construction lines to project across. Again, any sharp edge or corner. Because we have a round feature on the top, we're actually going to be able to just copy that directly, which is sort of nice. Oops, didn't want to do that. There we go. Let's bring the middle of this hole across too while we're at it. And the bottom. And let's bring this over as well. I know it looks like a lot, but this will just really help streamline things for us. Okay. So let's start real simply. We're just going to start by just copying the top piece here. And we'll just bring it straight over. There we go. And again, that's because both of these features, the hole and the boss, are cylindrical. And we're looking at what's essentially a side view of them. So no matter what direction you look at from this plane, it's going to look the same. And then here we've got a hole that's centered up, so we can come in with our object line. We can come in and bring in our two circles here, one there and one here. Okay, then we'll finish drawing in this face. It's going to go there. Again, we want it to kind of look like a letter D that's sort of turned 90 degrees, and we're going to bring this sharp edge across as well. And so now all I have to do is come in with the trim tool here, and we can remove the top half of this circle, which is a bit of work, but it's okay. Not too bad. There we go. And then these lines, these vertical lines, we can actually carry those down all the way to the bottom. We're just stretching those out, and then we'll put in a line here. And then we just need a hidden line across the bottom to show that little back tab. Okay, so we are done with this construction line, this one, all the ones for the hole, and the top. So we're done with all of our construction lines. We just need two more features here. One is this hole, which we can just copy directly. So we'll just grab that, we'll click copy, and bring that across. Now, because these do touch, we want to make sure that the line type scale of this horizontal hidden line makes it so that there's a section of the line, not a gap in the hidden line. So we got to adjust that down. So let's try 0.5. Doesn't work. We need more. Again, we don't want a gap in that top line. We want to touch there. So let's go. Let's do 0.3. Let's try 0.2. I think might work better. There we go. That's exactly what we're looking for there. That helps out a lot. And then the last thing we need just are center lines here. So we can just offset. Let's try 0.1. Go out. We'll draw in our center lines and we'll adjust them. And it looks like we're coming up on needing a part 2 for this video. And we're going to bring this center line down, which will create it so that we don't necessarily have a plus, but that's okay. We'll adjust that. And we will adjust our line type scale for this one, last but not least.